The message came through just as I was heading out with a friend. Don't worry, kiss mark. The emoji hit me harder than the words themselves. It wasn't what she said, it was that kiss emoji, the same one she used to send before everything went cold, before I became background noise in my own life. But here's the twist. I wasn't where I claimed to be. I had parked across the street from Lorenzo's Bistro, an upscale Italian restaurant she always dismissed as too expensive for date night. Something had been eating at me for weeks. Her late-night showers, her locked phone screen, the forced laughter over texts she never let me see. And then, almost like fate wanted to drive the point home, there she was outside, stepping into view. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly the leather groaned under the pressure. Through the window, I could see her leaning across a candle-lit table, whispering to some guy with hair too polished to trust. She wore that dress, the one she swore was reserved for special occasions. Apparently, Random Tuesdays now qualified. Watching her laugh like I hadn't seen in years felt surreal. Seeing him place his hand over hers made my chest tighten even more. Without thinking, I snapped a photo, not because I planned to confront her right away, but because I needed proof. Proof that I wasn't losing my mind, that this wasn't all in my head like she'd insisted last time I questioned her about her nights out. Then I texted her, "Yeah, I'm watching you have dinner with him right now." She read it immediately. Her body froze mid-motion, and suddenly she was scanning the room like prey caught in headlights. I stepped out of the car. The air stung, sharp enough to burn your nose and match the ache in your chest. Couples around me faded into the background, along with the waitstaff and the soft jazz drifting through the speakers. None of it mattered anymore. I walked inside, and when her eyes found mine, they widened like I'd risen from the dead. Her date turned toward me, confused, while I pulled up a third chair, sat down slowly, and asked, "So, how's the food?" She didn't respond. Not a word. Just panic radiating off her like heat waves on asphalt. All I heard was the clink of her fork hitting the plate. A tiny, accidental sound that sliced through the restaurant's ambiance like shattering glass. She froze, mouth slightly open, as if the flickering candlelight between us had short-circuited her brain. Her companion, I'll call him Hair Gel, leaned back in his seat, unsure whether I was security, a stalker, or something worse. "Excuse me," he said smoothly, oozing confidence. "Can I help you?" I ignored him completely. My focus was entirely on her, waiting, hoping she'd explain it away. Maybe tell me this was all a misunderstanding, that I was being paranoid, or maybe even planning a surprise birthday dinner. Ridiculous, sure, but anything would have been better than silence. But no explanation came, just wide eyes and that twitchy half-smile she used when trying, and failing, to look innocent. I repeated myself, calm, or at least pretending to be. "How's the food?" I glanced at her untouched wine glass. "Looks like you're just getting started." Still nothing. Silence stretched longer than it should have, until finally, mercifully, she spoke. "Barrett, what are you doing here?" I wanted to laugh. That's what she went with. Pure defensive confusion. No, it's not what it looks like, or I can explain. As if I was the one out of line for walking into a public place where my wife was sharing a table, a bottle, and what looked suspiciously like foreplay with a man she'd never mentioned to me. Hair Gel, yes, that's what I called him in my head, glanced between us, starting to realize he wasn't the main character in this scene after all. "You know this guy?" he asked her, keeping his tone light but tightening his jaw. She swallowed hard. "He's my husband," she said. Hair Gel blinked. "You're married?" That did it. I laughed out loud, probably louder than I should have. A few diners turned their heads. One waiter dropped a spoon, and Neely, my sweet, secretive wife, looked like she wanted to vanish into the floor. "Yeah," I said, still laughing but dying inside. "She forgets that sometimes." Then I pulled out my phone, slid it onto the table, and tapped the screen. A photo lit up, the one I'd taken earlier from the car. Neely laughing mid-sip, his hand already reaching across the table, her eyes locked on his. "I like to remember the special moments," I said. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. He looked at the screen, then back at her. His face shifted from smug to embarrassed to something unreadable. She stood up suddenly. "We need to talk," she hissed at me, grabbing my arm as though we were about to argue over which movie to stream, not the fact that she was on a date with a stranger while married to a man sitting 2 feet away. I didn't budge. "Oh, we'll talk," I said quietly, "but not here. I just came to confirm what I already knew. You can go back to your appetizer." She tried to speak again, but I stood up before she could form a sentence. I turned to Hair Gel. "Enjoy your evening. You two look adorable." And I walked out. But the real storm hadn't even started yet. I don't even remember driving home. It was like I blinked, and suddenly I was sitting on the edge of our bed, staring at my shoes, heart still jackhammering against my ribs. The house felt unfamiliar, like I'd wandered into someone else's quiet life. And the worst part? Her wine glass was still on the kitchen counter from last night, with that red smear of lipstick on the rim, mocking me. 10 minutes later, I heard her car pull into the driveway. She came in fast, no dramatic pause, no slow door creak like in the movies. Just keys jangling, heels stomping, breath ragged. I stayed seated. I didn't even look up. "Barrett," she said, her voice already cracking. "That wasn't what it looked like." There it was, the oldest line in the Betrayal playbook. I let out a soft, joyless laugh, the kind that makes your throat tighten because it's trying to block tears. "Neely," I said, eyes still fixed on the floor, "don't insult me more than you already have." She started pacing. The sound of her heels echoed through the room, sharp and deliberate against the hardwood floor. She moved in circles, as if pacing herself for some grand confrontation. "You followed me?" she shot at me, her tone accusatory, as though that was the real issue here. Finally, I turned to face her. "You lied to me," I said, my voice steady but heavy. "You told me you were out with a friend. That's what your message said, right?" She didn't confirm it. She didn't deny it either. Instead, tears welled up in her eyes, spilling down her cheeks. Real or staged, I couldn't tell anymore. Her hands trembled as she pressed them to her face, mascara already smudging under the weight of emotion, or performance. "He's just someone I used to know," she began, her voice shaky. "We ran into each other months ago. It's not serious, I swear." That word, just, cut deeper than anything else. Just an old acquaintance. Just dinner. Just another wine glass cleaned and hidden before I got home, on nights when things didn't add up. "You wore the dress," I said, almost to myself, my voice quieter now. "You told me it didn't fit." Her expression shifted, panic flickering across her features. "It didn't then. I lost weight. I wasn't hiding that." "You weren't hiding that," I repeated slowly, nodding for emphasis. "Just everything else." Without another word, I opened the drawer beside the bed. Inside was a file folder stuffed with receipts, phone records, and printouts. I wasn't proud of how far I'd gone to uncover the truth, but I needed answers. I had known for weeks before tonight, that something was wrong. I placed the folder on the bed between us. She stared at it like it might explode. "You think I just stumbled upon this by chance?" I asked, my voice calm despite the storm inside me. "You think I haven't been piecing it all together? The gym sessions where you never came back sweaty? The phone that conveniently died every time I called? The weekend conference that didn't exist?" She tried to speak, but faltered, words catching in her throat. "I wanted you to say it," I continued softly. "I wanted to hear the truth from you. But now I realize you can't even do that." And that was the moment it hit me hardest. Not the betrayal itself, not even being caught red-handed, but the fact that she still refused to apologize. Instead, she stood there, defiant, and said, "Barrett, we've been unhappy for a long time." As if that somehow justified everything. As if my pain, my humiliation, my shattered trust could be swept away with those words. She looked at me like I was the one who had ruined the evening. Like having eyes, having a brain, having the audacity to connect the dots made me the villain. After what felt like an eternity of silence, she finally spoke. "You can't go through my phone records," she snapped, latching on to indignation as her defense. Privacy, not betrayal, not deceit, was her angle. She was angry, I could see that. But I didn't raise my voice, I didn't throw things, I didn't unleash the fury boiling beneath the surface. Not yet. Instead, I asked simply, "Tell me his name." She hesitated, and in that hesitation I found my answer. She sank onto the edge of the bed, far from me, her hands clasped tightly like a child waiting for punishment. "It doesn't matter," she muttered weakly. "It does to me," I replied, my voice trembling now. "If I'm going to relive this nightmare for the rest of my life, I'd at least like to have a name to curse." Silence stretched between us, suffocating and unbearable. So I gave her one. "Cameron." Her head jerked up, startled, as if I'd struck her. She didn't confirm it. She didn't need to. I'd seen his name tucked away in her contacts under marketing guy. I'd read the texts, pieced together the fragments of lies. There was no denying it now. The images were burned into my mind. One captured at a dimly lit bar, another snapped inside his car. Both photos pulled from her phone. That folder I placed on the bed wasn't for show. It had taken shape over 3 weeks, fragment by fragment, as I clung to the hope that I was mistaken, praying it was all in my head. But when you start gathering evidence like that, you're not trying to confirm their guilt. You're trying to convince yourself you're not losing your mind. "How long has this been going on?" I asked, my voice trembling. Silence. Was it just dinner? Just drinks? Or was it something more? My tone sharpened. Hotel rooms booked under fake names? She shot back, defensive now. "Don't talk to me like I'm some kind of—" Her words trailed off. "Some kind of what?" I cut in. "A liar? A cheater? Someone who sends flirty texts while her husband's folding laundry at home?" I stood abruptly, the calm I'd tried so hard to maintain unraveling. Dizziness swept over me, fueled by everything I didn't know but couldn't unsee. Every Wednesday she stayed late at work. Every girls' night out. Every casual plan sealed with a kiss emoji. It all felt tainted now. "I don't even know what's real anymore," I muttered. She rubbed her temples, frustration etched across her face. "We weren't working, Barrett. You knew that." Slowly, I turned to face her. "So instead of talking about it, you destroyed us?" "It wasn't planned," she said, her voice quieter now. "It just happened." Those words hit like a punch to the gut. It just happened? As if betrayal were an accident, like spilling coffee or forgetting an umbrella, like sleeping with someone else could slip unnoticed between morning yoga and her mother's birthday dinner. She rose from her seat and reached for my hand. Instinctively, I stepped back. "Don't," I said sharply, "not when I'm still trying to figure out how you looked me in the eye yesterday." Neither of us slept that night. We shared the same space, breathing the same stale air, yet saying nothing. But I could tell she already knew it was over. She just didn't know what I'd do next, and truthfully, neither did I. The following morning brought no sense of closure. Sunlight streamed through the windows, but it offered no warmth. The house felt hollow, as though it too had been betrayed. I moved through the motions mechanically, making coffee and pouring it into her favorite mug. Old habits die hard, even when people don't. She hadn't left. Instead, she remained curled up on the couch, wrapped in sweatpants and guilt. No good morning passed between us. I should have gone to work, but I couldn't bring myself to leave. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the open folder. Black and white proof of her choices stared back at me. Credit card charges for dinners I wasn't invited to, a hotel receipt from a weekend she claimed she'd spent at Gwen's lake house. And then there was the photo, a selfie of them in his car, her head resting casually on his shoulder, captioned, "Finally free." I hadn't known about that picture until I checked our shared cloud storage. She'd forgotten to disable her auto backup. When she finally broke the silence, it wasn't with an apology. It was with a question. "So what now?" she asked, as if we were deciding where to grab lunch. No remorse, no quiver in her voice, just cold pragmatism. It terrified me more than anything else. "What now?" I echoed, refusing to meet her gaze. "You're waiting for me to fall apart, aren't you?" I asked. "Isn't that what you expected? That I'd cry, beg you to choose me, forgive you because you think I'm the safer option?" She didn't deny it. Her silence confirmed I was right. I stood up and walked past her toward the hallway. She followed me, hovering as if she expected me to explode, but I didn't. Instead, I opened the closet, pulled out a suitcase, and placed it on the bed. "You can stay here tonight," I said. "I'll go to a hotel." "You're leaving?" she asked, genuinely surprised. "You're seriously walking out?" "No," I replied slowly. "I'm removing myself. There's a difference." "You're being dramatic, Barrett." Those words hit hard, not because they were true, but because they revealed her instinct to belittle, deflect, shut me down. I used to overlook such comments, brushing them off as trivial. Now I saw them for what they truly were, disrespect disguised as familiarity. "You cheated on me," I said quietly. "Don't talk to me about drama." She crossed her arms defensively. "So what? You're just done? Just like that?" "No," I corrected her. "You ended this. I'm simply catching up." That's when she broke down. Tears streamed down her face. She blocked the doorway, pleading with me to reconsider. "We could go to therapy," she insisted. "I shouldn't throw everything away over a mistake." But I stopped her there. "Mistakes are tripping on the stairs," I told her firmly. "What you did was deliberate, a plan." Her expression shifted, anger replacing vulnerability. "You think he actually wants me?" she snapped. "You think I'm running off into the sunset with him? He's not even that serious." I blinked, unshaken by her attempt to shift blame. "Then you destroyed our marriage for nothing." That silenced her. Betrayal isn't always about love. It's often about power. She thought I'd crawl, compete, fight for someone who had already given herself away. Maybe I would have if she'd been honest from the start, but she waited until there was nothing left to salvage. It was well past midnight when she finally crept into the bedroom. I was awake, of course, lying on top of the covers, staring at the ceiling, counting every second she lingered in the house like it was a punishment. I'd cycled through every emotion, rage, sorrow, disbelief, but now I felt something darker. Numbness, detachment. I might as well have been a statue, yet even then I felt more alive than I did in that moment. She didn't turn on the light, just stood in the doorway like a child afraid to wake a sleeping parent. After a pause, she moved closer and sat at the foot of the bed without asking. Her weight barely shifted the mattress. "I need to tell you something," she whispered. I didn't respond, which she took as permission to continue. She began speaking softly, almost clinically, as though she'd rehearsed these words 100 times and finally decided to let them out. She explained how she met Cameron at a work event, a networking brunch she hadn't invited me to because it was exclusive to professionals. They exchanged books, music recommendations, coffee dates. Then one night he kissed her, and she didn't stop him. It felt nice to be wanted, she admitted. I continued staring at the ceiling, unable to muster any response. The words she spoke next will stay with me forever, not because they shocked me, but because their honesty cut deeper than any accusation ever could. "I didn't sleep with him because I stopped loving you, Barrett," she said. "I slept with him because you became a roommate to me. You didn't notice when I came into the room anymore. You stopped asking me how my day was. You just faded away." My jaw tightened, not from anger, but because she'd finally answered the question I'd been too afraid to ask. Why him? Why now? I sat up and met her gaze. "So that's how you deal with it?" I said. "By swapping me out for someone who grins at your book racks?" She didn't flinch. "I know it was wrong," she replied softly. "Wrong?" I repeated, shaking my head. "You built an entire life behind my back. You lied to me with every smile, laughed in my face, and came home to a man you couldn't even look at anymore. And the word you settle on is wrong?" She swallowed hard. "I'm not saying I stopped loving you. I just stopped feeling like I mattered to you." There it was again, the same justification cloaked in self-pity. She wanted me to believe her betrayal stemmed from my emotional distance, like my silence somehow gave her permission to seek comfort elsewhere. But here's the truth she refused to admit. I didn't notice her walking into the room because I stopped trying. It wasn't indifference, it was fear. Every conversation ended in sarcasm. Every attempt at connection was met with apathy. When I reached for her hand, it felt like begging. I exhaled slowly. "What happens now, Nia? You say this like it's closure, like confessing means I'm supposed to suddenly heal or something." Her eyes dropped. "I don't know what you want me to do." "Well, maybe you should have thought about that before all of this started." She wiped her tears, nodded, and then whispered something so audacious I almost laughed. "I wish you had stopped me." "You mean after you lied to me?" I shot back. "After the fake texts, the wine glasses, the perfume? After strangers knew more about your life than I did?" She stood up abruptly, finally realizing how broken things had become. "I just never thought you'd leave. You, the dependable one, the boring one, the guy who folds towels neatly and never checks his phone, the one who wasn't dramatic until he had a reason to be." But now she had no idea what I might do next. I didn't sleep that night either. The bed felt smaller with her in it, not physically, but emotionally. Everything that once brought me comfort now seemed cold and foreign. I lay still, pretending to sleep, while my mind raced in circles, questioning everything I thought I knew about the woman lying inches away. By morning, I'd made a decision. I waited until she went to shower, leaving her phone on the nightstand as usual. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. I'd already seen enough. I reached for my phone and began typing a message. It wasn't addressed to her, nor to Gwen, Rachel, or anyone else we both knew. Instead, I sent it to someone I never thought I'd contact. Cameron, the man from the restaurant, the one with the wine glass, the man who was now just a distant memory. I had discovered his number weeks earlier, entirely by accident. She had sent me a text meant for him, a reminder about plans that didn't match anything we had discussed. I traced it back to him. That's how far down the rabbit hole of suspicion I had fallen before everything unraveled. My message was simple. I'm not threatening you. I just need one honest answer. Did you know she was married the entire time? 15 agonizing minutes passed before he replied. I nearly lost my composure waiting. Then, finally, his response came. Yeah, she said it was over, that you were just roommates. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling, not with rage, but with an unfamiliar kind of sorrow. He had known. He had known all along. And she had painted a version of me that bore little resemblance to the person I truly was. A shadow, a placeholder, not a husband. Just someone inconsequential. A moment later, another message appeared. Look, man, I'm sorry. I'm not proud of it. I backed off when I saw your face at the restaurant. Didn't realize it was like that. I didn't respond. What could I say? Thank you for sleeping with my wife while feeling partially guilty? I deleted the conversation, set my phone face down, and walked toward the bathroom, where steam billowed out behind her. She looked at me as though she still held some power over me. What? She asked. I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her, really looked. For the first time in weeks, I saw her clearly. Not the woman I married, not even the woman I once loved. Just someone I used to know. She wrapped a towel around herself, walked past me, and paused in the hallway, as if expecting some dramatic confrontation. Instead, I simply said, I messaged him. Her face went pale. I wanted to know what story you told him, I continued. And you know what? It wasn't even about the cheating anymore. It was about realizing you had rewritten me into someone unrecognizable. You turned me into a character in his narrative, a quiet, detached husband, an invisible man. I didn't mean to, she started. But you did, I cut in. You needed to justify what you were doing, so you made me the villain, the man who didn't care, the man who didn't exist. She didn't deny it. She just stood there, clutching the towel like it was armor. I'm not invisible, Neely, I said. I saw everything, felt every lie, and now I'm done. This time I wasn't bluffing, and she knew it. She didn't follow me, not when I packed my bag, not when I grabbed my keys, not even when I stood at the front door for what felt like an eternity, waiting to see if she'd say something, anything to stop me. But silence was her only reply. There was no speech, no final plea, no grand apology. Just the soft thud of my shoes on the hardwood floor as I walked away from a life that no longer belonged to me. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't shaking. I didn't cry. I let out a deep breath, as if someone had finally opened a window in a room that had felt suffocating for years. Instead of going to a hotel, I drove 2 hours to my brother's house. When he answered the door, he didn't ask any questions, just pulled me into a hug and said, "Took you long enough." I stayed there for 3 days. No texts from her, no calls, just me, some old movies, cold pizza, and an unfamiliar but comforting sense of peace settling over me. On the 4th day, I checked my inbox. There it was, an email from Nei. It was long and rambling, somewhere between a love letter and a confession. She apologized, said she missed me, admitted she hadn't realized how empty the house would feel without my quiet presence and predictable routines. Then came the line, "Maybe someday we can talk, even just as friends." I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the email to my lawyer. It wasn't about revenge or trying to hurt her. I didn't want to destroy her. I simply wanted out, cleanly, quietly. The divorce papers were filed, and she didn't contest them. 6 months later, I moved into a small apartment with terrible wallpaper, but the most beautiful morning light I'd ever seen. I bought new plates, new towels, and started cooking again. For myself this time. No audience, no silent judgment across the table. One morning, while sipping burnt coffee and scrolling through job postings, I found myself smiling. A genuine, unintentional smile. Life wasn't perfect, but for the first time in what felt like forever, it was mine again. No more pretending, no more tiptoeing around someone else's moods or expectations. No more waiting for someone to love me the way I deserved. Just me, peace, and the slow, honest work of starting over. The weight of carrying someone else's version of who I should be had lifted, leaving behind something raw but freeing. Authenticity. It's funny how clarity sneaks up on you. For so long, I thought leaving would mean failure, that walking away meant giving up on us, on her, on everything we'd built together. But now I see that staying was the real surrender. Staying meant losing myself piece by piece until there was almost nothing left. Leaving wasn't destruction, it was creation. A chance to rebuild not just my life, but myself. What part of the story resonates with you? Was it the moment I finally left? The quiet relief of those 3 days at my brother's house? Or maybe it was the realization that life doesn't have to be dramatic to feel significant. Sometimes the most powerful moments are the simplest ones. The exhale after holding your breath for too long. The first sip of coffee in a space that's truly yours. The quiet understanding that happiness doesn't always announce itself loudly. It creeps in when you least expect it, soft and steady, like sunlight warming your skin after a storm. If anything here strikes a chord, take a moment to reflect on your own journey. Maybe you're still in the thick of it, feeling suffocated by circumstances or relationships that no longer serve you. Or maybe you've already taken steps toward freedom and are learning how to live in the aftermath of hard decisions. Either way, remember this. Peace isn't something you find outside yourself. It's something you build within. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Not because you've given up, but because you haven't.